before we get started, just wanted to do a couple brief housekeeping items. First thing is that my name is Alex and I chair Comm Alumni Council. So hopefully you know that this event is being hosted by the Comm Alumni Council. Many other faces on the call today are members. We do definitely welcome you all reaching out to us on LinkedIn, getting to know a little bit more about us or the council if you are interested. And we have been offering this as a monthly career series. So I'm just going to flash this slide up here. This is a little bit about what it is. I think some of you have been on our series before. So basically took the the idea of Career Day and put it into a virtual format so that we could connect in a more intimate capacity with students and recent grads to have those career conversations that we couldn't do live. So that's what this has been. It's been really awesome throughout COVID. Now that we're starting to go back, we're evaluating, what this will look like going forward. Here was the kind of 2021 schedule, and we are at June, which is crazy. Culminating a really amazing lineup with Noelle and her experience as brand manager. And then we're going to look at what we're going to do kind of going forward. So keep your eyes peeled on social for emails from the department if you're interested in coming to ones in the future. So with that, what we're going to do is first have Noelle kind of jump into her career overview. If you have questions as she's speaking, please feel free to throw them in the chat or to come off mute and ask if there's an appropriate break. Otherwise, you can wait until the end and then you can ask her when she kind of goes through her journey. So any of those options work. We're really glad to have you here. With that, Noelle, I will turn it over to you.
So I'm going to first run through a little bit more about my career history and kind of what got me to brand management. Then I'll get into what brand management is. Again, feel free to ask questions along the way, really want this to be a conversation. So welcome all of your engagement, and do also have some questions thrown in here too. So, okay, well, we'll start with, there we go. About me and my career history. So I went to UCSB. I was a communication and economics major, and I actually was working in real estate while I was at UCSB. I thought that might be my path. I tried it out. I felt like it wasn't a fit. It was also about the time the market crashed. So, I decided, I'm going to pivot. So I worked actually after school in government for 4 years. I was a district director for a California senator. So in that role, got to do all of his public relations, media relations, so definitely using that comm degree. But for me, I know what energizes me is keep moving up that ladder. And I had hit a ceiling where there wasn't any more opportunity for me to grow. So I left and pivoted again. I went to work as a recruiter for the Boston Consulting Group, which was very fun. Got big budgets to throw parties and got to meet a lot of great people, but learned that it wasn't a good fit for me because it was more on the administrative side. And I learned from that what is energizing for me is really working on the strategy and leading teams. So I left and I decided to work as a communications consultant where I was really running the business and running the show. So I worked with clients like PG&E, I worked for a campaign, I worked for a nonprofit. So kind of did a little bit of everything to see what I liked and didn't like. And ultimately that led me to business school because I decided that marketing was really the best fit for me because it was the communication stuff that I loved, but it was also the strategy piece and more of the business side that I had studied. So knew that I wanted to switch into marketing and specifically brand management because it really is a lot of that leadership and again, setting the vision for, what we want to see the future of a brand look like. So coming out of USC, I worked for a company called Pharmavite who makes the nature-made vitamins. So worked on their prenatal vitamins and their beauty vitamins, which was a great fit because loved health and wellness. But when I saw the role open in General Mills on the Annie's brand, couldn't turn that down because it was an opportunity to work on a purpose-driven brand. So similarly, going back to my politics days got me excited about working on sustainability and things that meant a lot to me personally. And then so I moved over and worked on the Annie's mac and cheese business for the last 2.5 years, which was so fun. I got to be the CEO of mac and cheese, every kid's dream job. And then just last week, I moved to a new role because I felt like I had gotten everything I could out of, working on Annie's business and wanted a new challenge. So I moved to a startup. So now working in the e-commerce space. So I share all of this because my path definitely wasn't on the straight and narrow. I've done a lot of different things, but I think what's most important is from every experience I learned and grew and kind of figured out where my path was going. So happy to talk more about this later, all the different things I've done, about business school too, if you have any questions there. Okay, so now what is brand management? So I'm going to flash some images on the screen and just shout out what they mean to you.
TikTok.
Yep, you got it. Okay, next one.
Starbucks.
Yep, you got it.
Nike.
Yep. Okay. Last one.
Apple.
Apple.
Yep. So you were able to guess all of these images and there's not a single word on this page. So that I think really demonstrates the power of branding and why brand management is really so important. It's creating associations and really meaning behind these logos such that, everybody pretty much knows them. So here's another example that I just love. It's like, I searched on Walmart for a black sweatshirt, $7.44. But then I looked for a Supreme sweatshirt that had its logo on it and it's $300. There's probably some discrepancy, in the quality between the two, but likely not enough to justify that price point. It's really because people are so excited about being associated with the Supreme brand that they're willing to pay more. So that's how it's able to command a $300 price point. And also saw that they sold 253 t-shirts for $2 million. And again, that's just like the power of what a brand can do. So just to kind of circle back, what a brand is: a public image, reputation, or identity conceived of as something to be marketed or promoted. So it's a lot of those intangibles you associate, with Apple. It's like sleek design and really forward thinking, or, you can name any number of brands that'll have different associations because of how they've been marketed. So and you've probably seen this in marketing classes at UCSB, but wanted to give kind of a framework and how you as a brand manager would go about your day-to-day solving problems. So this is the framework that I would use, and we're going to go through a case study after this, so you get a good idea of how to frame up these questions or frame up problems in your mind using these two different frameworks. So first is the 3 C's. So consumer, it's who's buying your product. Like that's always where you're going to start first and foremost. Like they're the most important in any decision. Then you have to think about your competitors. Who else is in the landscape? Who do we have to be thinking about? Because there's only so much, money consumers are willing to spend. So we're trying to grab that share of wallet. And we have to do that when our competitors are trying to do the same. So how do we do it better? And then the last is company. So think of this in terms of what are the guardrails that you would want to work within. So, what are the other products that your company makes? What's their mission and vision and values? So it'll give you kind of guardrails of how to move forward and think through your marketing. And then that's kind of like the overarching. And then once you're going into more specific decisions, you use the 4 Ps. So price, how should we be priced versus our competitors? Are we a value brand? Are we premium? Product, so what is it that we should launch? Like, is mac and cheese on trend, or should we go with something healthier? So making those decisions, and it's really laddering up to like, who's our consumer? How do we compete against our competitors? And then place. So places like, should we sell at Target or Walmart or Amazon, and thinking through what is a best fit for our brand based on who our consumer is. And then the last P is promotion. And I think that this is what a lot of people think of is like the advertising piece, like what you'll see on social media or, in the store, a display. So this is kind of more consumer facing than some of the others. But as a brand manager, you're responsible for owning all 4 Ps. So we'll get into an example. So I pulled an example from Annie's, so my last job. I worked on our mac and cheese business. So we'll give you these data points and then walk through different decisions across the 4 Ps. So our Annie's consumer is households with kids. That's who does, or while a lot of people buy Annie's mac and cheese, that's like the bread and butter, our most important consumer. Our key competitor is Kraft. So Kraft is number 1 in terms of sales, and Annie's is number 2. So that's who we're really thinking about as we're making these decisions. And then the last thing is company. So the mission on Annie's is, we're on a mission to cultivate a healthier, happier world by spreading goodness through nourishing foods, honest words, and conduct that is considerate and forever kind to the planet. So that again is your guardrail in making any decisions. So we'll move on to the first question. So let's think about price. So we know that this is our shelf set. So this picture in the middle is, I think it was at like a Kroger or some kind of grocery store. So this is our competitive set. So as I mentioned before, Kraft is our main competitor. They have the majority of the items on shelf. So as we're thinking about how we should be priced, we know that Kraft is priced here at 96 cents. As we're thinking about Annie's versus Kraft, we know Annie's is organic, really focuses on the sustainability aspect. So where I would say we are in terms of quality is above Kraft. So where should we be priced then? $5, 20 cents, or $1.20? And why? Any guesses?
I guess it's $1.20, because even though like the competitor part is like with lower price, but like the quality of the products will be higher, it's better than the others. And even if it's too low, other people will think, the customer will think, oh, probably they don't do really good quality, or they don't really good for the planet, something like that. But when it to be $5, a big difference, and people just like focus on the price, the difference of the price, and they will just pick the competitor one. So I think $1.20 will be good.
Yep, no, you're exactly right. You talked through that perfectly. Because yeah, we want to stay within a close enough range that, if someone's buying Kraft, they'd consider us, but want to make sure that we're demanding the premium positioning that we have in the market. So perfect answer. Okay, so next problem to solve. So again, remember, our competitor is Kraft. Our household is, our consumer is households with kids. Some of the trends that I've seen in the market are that people like spicy, bold flavors. Another trend is more healthy. So think of like better versions of something you're used to, like something with hidden veggies or something like that. And then another trend too is that Disney is coming out with Frozen 2. So what are some products that you think Annie should consider launching next? Any guesses? Okay, hand raised.
Like for me, I would definitely do the Frozen one first, because it's more easy to catch like the kids' attention, and like especially when they saw it, they will compare it to like the spicy one or the healthy part one. I think they was like, oh, they were like ask for the parents like, cause it's like frozen packaging, and they want the packaging, and they want to take a try
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, no, I think that's so smart, thinking about like, again, what is a kid gonna like what's most exciting for them, because that's really how everyone is happy when they get home and are making dinner. So that was a great answer. Okay, we'll move on to the promotion piece. So this one is, again, it's like, what do we think about? I have to come up with an advertising campaign. This is our Annie's mac and cheese box. This is our craft box. So now I have to think through how we are different and better than craft. Like, what are the key messages that I would want to focus on as the brand manager? So feel free to shout them out, or we'll give you a second to look at. So anything that's different than craft that you'd want to highlight.
I guess like just like the idea that like Annie's is made with like organic ingredients, so like it's better for you like health wise.
Yep, that's definitely one of the top ones that we focus on, because craft doesn't do that. So that's something that we can talk about differentially. So that was a great one. Nope, it's me, my dog too. So some other examples besides the organic is we have a different shaped pasta. We use real cheese where craft does not. We have a made with goodness pledge that talks about how we source our ingredients. We have a different shaped noodle and different cheese flavors, so we can talk about our variety too. So those are kind of all the things that we would want to bring together as we're thinking through our advertising campaign and prioritize, what's most important. So to your point, organic is usually the thing that we talk about because it's what our consumers care about. Okay, so last one. So again, as we're thinking about our consumer, families with or households with families, where do you think Annie should be sold and why? An REI, a Target, or a Shell? And there's no real wrong answer.
I'd say like definitely Target, just because like that seems like a place where like families with like households with children would like most likely shop.
Yep, that's a great answer, because that is where our consumers mostly shop and a lot of our bread and butter, because yep, that's where they're going for their other things. So they pick up Annie's mac and cheese along the way. And it's not that we couldn't sell at a Shell because, easy grab and go, but Target is where people are in the space to like be thinking about their grocery shopping. So love how you teed that up. Okay. And then was also going to share this. So now that we've gotten through the Annie's example and kind of work through the 4 Ps, was going to reverse engineer an advertisement. So this is an advertisement I saw on Instagram from Selena Gomez for Puma. So what do you think of the ad? Who do you think the consumer is? Like, what does it make you think about the Puma brand? And do you think it'll be successful? So what are some thoughts? Like, do you feel like it's a good ad?
I would say this one is like a maybe 70 point ad, because I think like the celebrity is wearing the product from Puma, but they didn't really show like the focus, like the angle or the picture size, because more focused on like the celebrity, and they also like distraction, like with the pets and like Christmas tree. And I think like the consumer will like will pay attention like to like the pay-in partnership with Puma. They will pay attention to the tag, but
Yeah.
they won't be like really like remembering, oh, what product is she telling.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that was a great analysis. Yeah, the other thing I think about is Puma. Like I'm not the consumer, but it looks like they're probably going after a younger consumer who's, you know, really into Selena Gomez. So that's why they're tapping her as their talent. So yeah, it looks like it's maybe a pink shoe. So maybe leaning to some gender norms there, but yeah, those are kind of the things that I would think about as I'm analyzing an ad and saying like, yes or no, I would want to approve this, because that would be another role you would have as a brand manager, is approving creative. So that was all I have in terms of content. We'll open it up to any questions, and thanks so much for participating. Stop sharing.
Please also feel free to throw any questions in the chat. If you don't feel like coming off mute, that's also totally fine.
I come up with a question. So is it also like brand management is also related to like advertising part, like with the promotion part, because it's related to like marketing. So can I say like brand management like include like a lot of areas?
Yeah, so marketing is kind of the overall umbrella, and brand management is one type of marketing. So in terms of like how I work with advertising, I'm not necessarily I don't come up with the advertising, but what I'll do is I'll write a creative brief and I'll say that my objective with Annie's brand is to grow our households, by 10%. And I want to do this by targeting this consumer who's more mainstream, but like is interested in organic and X, Y, and Z, and kind of put in those details about how we'll do it. And then I would give that brief to a creative agency, and they would come up with the advertising creative. And then usually you'll work with a separate agency who would figure out like, where do we put this in the world? So, should we put our advertising on Facebook? Should it be a TV campaign? And they would present their recommendation back to me based on what I've told them is a strategy. So I serve as that first role of defining like what the strategy is. And then I also serve as the approver. Like, yes, this is what we want to do. No, this is not what we want to do, based on whether or not it fits my initial guidelines. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. But yeah.
Noelle, can you tell us about some of the things that you're doing in terms of maybe some projects or some cool initiatives you're involved in for your new company?
Yeah, so my new company, again, this is week 2, so it's a lot of learning systems right now, but basically what they've handed me is this new brand. So it's called Tree of Life. It's a face care line. So essentially what I've been tasked with doing is figuring out like, how do we grow this brand? I'm taking it over from the founder. So it's somebody who didn't have a whole lot of marketing experience, but it's, done really well without a whole lot of marketing. So I have to figure out like, okay, are we priced appropriately? Like it's pretty low compared to our competitors. Is that something that we should think about taking up? I'm thinking about, this packaging, again, I don't know if it's hard or easy to see, but is that really how we want to represent ourselves in the world?
Let me see if I can mute. Hold on. Can I not mute? There we go. All right.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm looking at that and feeling like it's not really in line with how we want to represent ourselves in the world. Like right now it says flawless, younger, perfect, which is not on trend. Like there's it's definitely more about growing and aging beautifully. So really want to refocus and take this brand in a different direction rather than, you know, focusing on the anti-aging aspect. So those are kind of like some big things that I'm thinking about and wanting to tackle. So we'll see, more to come. But yeah, they literally were just like, figure it out. How do I grow this? So it's a little bit of everything, I would say.
Super cool. And Ron, you got a raised hand, go for it.
Yeah, you talked about lots of steps, and then you said you sort of decide, or other people in your role would decide, and then you go with the marketing. And how do you assess how well your decisions are working? That is, in the long run, how do you learn to be better at what you're doing?
Yeah, great question. I mean, there's different indicators for kind of everything I do. So like again, in the price example, you know, we would expect that probably if you're taking price up, like we're going to see a drop in sales, but hopefully like our revenue is increasing more so that we're making things up. So that would be like one thing I would think about. You know, as I'm looking at advertising, it's like a return on ad spend. So for, you know, every $10 you spend on advertising, how much are we getting back in terms of sales? So that would be like another key metric. And, you know, if we're not hitting those, like how do we move that money to a different place so it's more efficient? Other things I have to think about, I mean, sales is probably the biggest one. It's like, are we up or down? And usually look at it in terms of last year percent growth. Because that's really at the end of the day what leadership is looking for. So those are some other things. I also have to think about if the products are profitable too. So I mean, I think the easiest way really to describe my role and how I'm looking at all these things is like, I'm the general manager. Everything, the buck stops with me. So it's very broad in terms of what I do and what I'm responsible for, but everything comes through me, I would say.
Do we have any questions from any other students on the line? Anything on your mind based on what you heard, or some other questions just generally about brand or this relative, or Noelle's dog? I
know.
So cute.
Or questions about, business school, other marketing careers you're considering, open to anything.
How do you think like your time in like business school is helping you in like your career in brand management?
Yeah, I mean, for me and what I wanted to do, it was a necessary step because I had been looking at marketing roles and I really wanted to focus on a company that was bigger, would give me good training. And for most big consumer products companies, like think Clorox, General Mills, Procter & Gamble, you need your MBA in order to make that transition. But it's a very personal decision because you don't need it to get into marketing. So for me, it was really that I had worked a lot in communications, but I hadn't gotten the experience with setting strategies and more on like that economics piece. So I felt like it was necessary to get those skills in order to make the pivot into brand management. But it really is case by case because marketing in each company is so different. So for me, helpful, but not necessarily everyone. It's a lot of money, and I mean, 2 years that you're not working. So there are trade-offs for sure.
I guess like a follow-up question is like, what are like some like hard and like soft skills like you think are like necessary to like succeed in like branding and like marketing in general?
Oh yeah, great question. So as a brand manager, you're leading your cross-functional team. So I have weekly meetings with, somebody from sales, supply chain, finance, and have to make sure that, everybody's marching to the same drum and is aligned to our objectives that we want to achieve on the brand. So whether that's, growing my Tree of Life brand into a household name or growing it by $10 million or whatever that is, I have to make sure my team is working towards that together. So it's really important that you're a people person because I work with very different types of people that have different backgrounds, you know, so it's not all people I would necessarily like choose as a best friend. So being able to navigate and kind of adjust your working style to work with other people, I've found is really critical to being successful and kind of navigating the organization in general, because the other thing is like building relationships will be really important, because there's, you know, a limited budget, but usually you're working with other brands. So being able to advocate for, you know, why you deserve more of that, you know, advertising budget than someone else, it comes back a lot to relationships. So I think a lot of the soft people skills are really important. And I mean, yeah, I'm often doing presentations to leadership. So having, you know, a good executive presence, I think is really critical as well.
We have a question from Leslie in the chat. What are some comp costs you took that you tap back into today?
Oh, that was so long ago.
Or maybe thematics from those classes that you remember versus the actual.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, the one that immediately actually stood out to me is common politics, and part of the reason I went into politics after my first career. But I think that class really helped me think through, you know, what is the macro environment and how does it affect my day-to-day? So, you know, we just got a new president, so now all these policies are changing. So what does that mean in terms of, you know, we source a lot of ingredients from China. So like, what is the tariff going to mean for my business? Because we source those ingredients, so it'll impact, you know, things in my day-to-day. So I think that in general has been the most helpful in how I think about things.
It's a super interesting connection, right? Back into, you don't really realize maybe at the time how those things will play in, but very cool to hear.
Yeah.
All right, another question in the chat. If someone is interested in brand management, what are examples of entry-level positions? And what would the responsibilities include for those roles?
Yeah, so I think if you're coming out of college, the role you would want to look for is either like a brand associate or a marketing associate. That's usually the entry-level role that will feed into for next an associate brand manager, and then brand manager, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm trying to think like best ways to do those. I mean, general skill set, I think, is making sure you can analyze data. You know, they're not going to necessarily expect you to go in, but you have to come in with like a strategic mindset. So, you know, a lot of what I do is looking at spreadsheets and, you know, understanding what trends are. You know, so for example, seeing that week over week, you know, our vegan mac and cheese is doing really well on Annie's. So identifying like, oh, okay, there might be an opportunity to do more in the vegan space. And, you know, I want to bring this idea forward that we launch a new vegan item. So it's being able to look at that data and extrapolate insights to something that's actionable. So I think that's probably the most important thing that you need to be able to do.
Great questions. We have just a few more minutes. Any final thoughts on anyone's mind, so we don't miss anyone? All right, I'll ask you a closing question then, Noelle, for the group. So if you could think back on your, you know, career as you've shared with us today, for yourself back in the shoes of some of these students, what is, you know, a piece or two of advice that you would give them interested in this career path or otherwise, kind of from that vantage point looking ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I was so stressed about coming out of college is like, I have to have this first perfect job. It's got to be exactly what I'm looking for, you know, or, you know, I failed. And that is so not true. Like like, again, like, as I said in the beginning, like my path was very circuitous to get here, but like, I love what I'm doing and, you know, I found my career path. So just make sure that you're thinking through any next step that you go into and getting something out of it, whether it's, you know, building your soft skills, or, you know, you want to work on your data analysis, whatever that is, making sure you get out of it, and then, you know, leveraging that to get to your next role that you're more excited about. So that would be my biggest piece of advice.
Such good advice. Yeah, I'll double tap on all of that. I think many of the alumni council members would as well. So Noelle, thank you so much. I actually learned a lot from your presentation. So that was really fun. I was kind of letting the students jump in with their answers, which were way better than anything I was thinking of. So, but it was really fun to play along and learn a little bit about your day-to-day. So with that, we will close then for the evening. We're right on time. Please feel free to reach out to any of the council members on the call today. Invite us to be your connections on LinkedIn. Reach out if you want any support. Noelle, I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth, but probably any of us would be happy to connect with all of you. We also do offer a digital mentoring program, and we will be doing some additional sessions at some point in the future for this virtual career series. So if you enjoyed today, keep an eye out for that on our Instagram, and also from the listserv. So you'll continue to get comms from us going forward.